Welcome to Words on New Music, a podcast series hosted by Paul Muller and myself, Jim Goodin, live via Skype, bringing us together 3,000 plus miles apart to talk about new music. Through interviews with uniquely inspired composers and musical artists, you will be introduced to how they create their music, as well as a look into who they are. Paul and I are excited today to announce that Words on New Music, with this episode, is moving to video format and launching a new channel here on YouTube at youtube.com/Words on New Music. In this show, Paul and I talk live with composer, improvising pianist, musician, and educator Ben Smith. His composition ben.improv.jewel.13.2012 is used on our open and close today. And before the interview with Ben, we will feature his reflective Bill Evans-like solo piano piece, ben.improv.jewel.20.2012.a in full. Following his music, Paul will give us a brief introduction into who Ben Smith is, leading into our interview.
Steve Layton once called Ben Smith everyone's favorite piano player, and he was exactly right. Many of us know Ben from his long participation on Improv Friday. Each week, Ben posts the most amazing piano improvs, 2 and 3, sometimes 5 or 6. Each one is a true improv made up right on the spot, and they are all skillfully executed with a seemingly effortless precision. I always listen to what Ben posts each week because I know his improvs will be well done and contain something of real artistic value. The mashes I do on Improv Friday almost always include one of Ben's pieces because his work mixes so well with almost everyone else. Improv Friday would be a very different and a much poorer place without Ben's music. But who is Ben Smith? We know he lives in West Orange, New Jersey, but we don't know much else. He's a bit mysterious to the rest of us. Jim and I wanted to know more, so join us now as we try to coax the secrets out of this remarkable musician. Well, you know, of all the people that we were interested in talking to, you're kind of the most mysterious. I mean, we have guys with websites and all this stuff, and they put up their bios and they're always trying to brag a little. So we hear a lot about what they're doing, and of course with Ben, once a week he gives us like 3 or 4 of these tremendous improvs, and then he disappears somewhere, and we might hear him again next week, but. I'm hoping that we can kind of, get some basic information out of you. I think a lot of people would be interested about it. Well, did you grow up or were born in New Jersey? I come from Hackensack originally, and I've been through West Orange on the Parkway many times, I suppose. But have you always been in the New York area?
New York area, yes. I was born in Queens, New York.
Oh, okay.
And I lived in New York, in Queens, and Manhattan until the year 2000, where I moved to Maplewood, New Jersey.
Lakewood?
Maplewood.
Oh, Maplewood. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
It's very close to West Orange. So
yeah.
And then to West Orange a few years ago.
Huh. Okay. Well, so, growing up, did you have much of a music background? Did you have your parents after you to practice the piano since you were like 2 years old, or they chain you to the chair and make you play?
Oh, no, not exactly. There's a piano in my house, and I used to go to the piano and bang on it. And
sure.
After a while, they said, "Well, let's give them lessons," and I did the regular lessons.
Yeah.
There's something called John Thompson's Teaching Little Fingers to Play.
Oh yeah, I know that.
That's I had a neighborhood teacher, then I had another teacher, and I did recitals, the classical repertoire.
Wow.
I think I started around 5 or 6, and then I sort of did the neighborhood band thing when I was in my teens.
Yeah.
Playing more or less fusion. But to go back, I grew up listening to calypso. My mother was from Barbados. My older brother lived in a house and played a lot of calypso.
Huh.
My father played pretty much standard jazz.
Yeah.
Ella, Miles.
Yeah, Coltrane and
Coltrane. And I had classical music in the lessons. I would, learn classical repertoire.
That's interesting. I guess there's a lot of music in your house then, between your father's interest and your mother's calypso music. That's great. That must have been quite a class of a kind of an interesting blend of cultures. You think of the jazz scene in the 50s and 60s and bebop and everything, and you think of calypso in the islands. Wow, that's quite a mixture.
Yeah, but I was really open to anything. I didn't necessarily go the top 40 route. I like some of the Motown stuff,
right, yeah,
Supremes and Temptations.
Yeah,
but primarily I liked a little bit. I liked the songs, but I liked music that you had to listen to, to a few times to really get.
Yeah. So you started lessons around 5 or 6.
Something like that, yeah, 5 or 6.
And this is more or less continuous then through grade school and high school?
Yeah, I tried to go to the performing arts school, and
Ah,
I don't know, I didn't go there. And I started to get away from playing the classical repertoire. I wanted to do, I don't know, something more adventurous, something where I can make up my own stuff.
sure. Yeah.
And I found the fusion music interesting. What Herbie and Chick were doing, Weather Report. So our band tried to sort of cover those things or make up our own stuff. Yeah, after a while, I sort of played jazz, but not really straight ahead bebop. I don't know. It was sort of based on that. I
Yeah.
would go off, you know. I changed the harmonies and things like that. And so and I went to a music conservatory, Manhattan School of Music, when I was about 19. No, I went to a community college at 19.
Okay.
I started the Manhattan School of Music Conservatory like 20 something.
Oh,
Not
okay.
exactly sure, as a theory major.
Wow.
So that included a lot of analysis.
Sure.
You know, through let's see, the Baroque, classical, romantic, and then into Impressionism and all the 20th century stuff. So I had a lot of respect for, you know, form in music and analysis, seeing how the music working off motives and seeing how it spins out and develops and things like that.
Sure. Yeah.
But at the same time, I was big into going to the jazz clubs and listening to jazz, and I also went to this place called the Alternative something. But it was a place where a lot of cultures would come and play music. The acts there didn't even speak English, but the music was great. It was around Canal Street, so it's Lower Manhattan.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, these places dry. I think this was in the 70s, 80s. These places sort of ran out of money and
Right.
went away. But it was a very exciting place for me I guess I was a teen or in my early 20s. I was hearing a lot of different cultures and music. And so I was always open to whatever I could relate to.
Yeah, whatever was around you, you kind of absorbed it, it sounds like. Well, we got to ask, if you were as far south as Canal Street in the 70s, did you ever wander into a loft to hear Philip Glass or Steve Reich or any of those downtown musicians?
I went to lofts. I didn't hear the minimalists. I heard the avant-garde guys. Sam Rivers, I think. Dave Murray at one point. Yeah, the avant-garde jazz. That also too. I was into that as well.
Well, with all of that, what do you suppose your influences are? I mean, obviously your early life at home, you know, you've got those that kind of music, but you know, as you got a little older and went through some of the theory and so on, what do you think the strongest influences are?
The influence is everything, but at the same time, when I was studying harmony, I was trying to create my own language or my own, I don't know, to work on. You know, for a while I was listening to a lot of Bill Evans, but I just kept going from person to person. Tristano one day, I loved Shostakovich. I was listening to Arabic music, so I can't say there's one influence. It's more to different cultures and how they worked out their music and listening to certain people, but it wasn't necessarily genre specific.
Yeah, well, it does sound like you know, you kind of absorb whatever's around you, and you know, that's fine. And sometimes, you know, people are kind of channeled into one thing or another, and they get influenced. But if you're in a place like Manhattan, you know, with all of the variety there is there, you're likely to pick up a lot of different influences.
Well, yeah, you had to go to the spots though. You had to, you know, go to the so-called alternative spots.
Right.
There were places where, you know, there was a rock scene and a jazz scene and this scene and that scene, but then there are these other places. And it wasn't like now where you can go on the net and say, we're in the alternative places.
Yeah.
You sort of found out through the grapevine or like luck. You just see a place one day and say, oh, I hear some music.
Sure. It was kind of like that when I first came to New York in the early 90s, because like you say, the resources of the net were not there. And that was probably before some of it was, I was going to say before some of it was defined, but maybe not. Maybe it was just more like secretive.
Yeah.
Well, see, now Ben is right there at ground zero, right in Manhattan there, and he's going to school and studying theory and all this, and you're out and about and you pick up these influences. We don't have anything like that here on the West Coast, and on a lot of places. It's going to be more specific to one thing or another. So, that's a big advantage, being able to have that kind of variety and those resources available. I got to ask you one thing. I grew up in the New York area, maybe a little before you did, and I would listen an awful lot to the bebop guys, and Dizzy and Coltrane and all those things. And of course, I remember Weather Report and some of the later stuff. But I was convinced in high school that jazz was going to take over the world. It was just so exciting and so new. And the stuff Coltrane was doing, it was just unbelievable. And I'm thinking the Beatles. We're going with the Beatles. This is going to come to a crashing end, and Coltrane is going to rule. And it never happened. And maybe Ben, if you came along a little later, 70s and 80s, seemed like there was kind of a downward spiral of the music I really loved, from that era. And is that your sense, or did you pick up on these other things?
Yeah, there was a jazz scene in the Village area, and Dexter Gordon and Dizzy Gillespie came in a few times.
Right.
But after a while, I think something happened, and the whole yuppie thing came in, and
Yeah.
the jazz scene sort of fizzled and faded out a bit.
I think something you said early on in this about, how you liked music that took a few listens, it took a little bit more to get into it. It demanded that you give it some attention, some focus. And jazz is like that. It's hard to, there's various levels of stuff that's called jazz, but what you're talking about, I think our society is just a bit lazy in that regard. And I think of the kind of stuff that we're all doing, and that came out of that is you're asking your audience to be a little bit more willing to, digest this than just to be entertained.
It is intense music, that kind of jazz. And, you had to go to certain clubs, but it did have a following. And I thought it had, such integrity artistically that it would just have to emerge as, what the world was waiting for. And of course, I've been wrong ever since about those things. And it was a particular disappointment to me. And I don't know, maybe Ben sounds like he moved on, which is probably a healthy thing. But
well, no, I was disappointed that these clubs closed down and jazz was not as commercially successful as other types of music. But I sort of liked that it wasn't, in a way, because it felt more special and it was more intimate. You weren't going to a stadium usually. When I saw Ella Fitzgerald, she was in, I guess, Carnegie, Sarah Vaughan, that big places.
Sure.
But I saw some really great jazz musicians in the Vanguard, which is tiny.
Oh yeah, you've been to the Vanguard. Wow. Now that's like the Holy Land. I mean, I used to buy these records live at the Village Vanguard, and there they were. I kind of see that as a failing of Western culture, but then maybe I'm a little too severe.
Partially.
Yeah, I think you could make the case. I mean, I don't think the sophistication or the emotional appeal. Of course, I was a younger man then, so maybe that had something to do with it. But I mean, it would just grab you, in a way that it's hard to have happen nowadays. And certainly shortly after, the 70s and 80s, it all seemed to get watered down and disperse. And pretty soon, you're looking around and it just wasn't there. And that seemed like, such a loss. Well, in your time in high school, you say you played in a band, and then I guess in college you were performing. Have you always been a musician, a performing musician, or have you been doing day jobs or a variety of different things?
Oh, I did day jobs. I didn't really make my living from music. I did publishing and mostly that, publishing. And yeah.
Okay. Well, did you more or less perform on a regular basis, even if it wasn't, for a real income?
See, the thing is, I wanted to in my 30s and 40s do improv, and it didn't have to be jazz. And in fact, I wanted to be a sort of an attempt at trying to do just an improv and have it develop, spin into something. I had no idea to find a community that did that type of improv until when was it, around 2005?
Yeah.
Music for People, and they did that. They did improv based on any style, and then they do these sort of improv circles, sort of like a drum circle, but it's, you go in the middle and you facilitate and do quartets or either solos or ensembles and people play. It could be based on an ostinato or this, that, or the other, whatever it was based on. And this was like going home. So that because I was feeling pretty empty doing the day jobs.
Well, yeah,
and music out. And the other thing I started to do is then that way I was playing for people instead of for myself.
Right.
As soon as I got the computer and GarageBand, I started to just record improvs and just listen to them and go, okay, that's not bad. That's
well, it seems like you do something almost every day. I mean, we see these improvs you post, and they've got dates on them, and it's like every day you've got, you put something together. Has that been your habit?
Every day? No,
almost, huh?
Well, there are periods where I can do one every day or a few every day, and there are periods where 3 or 4 days go by, and I'm not feeling that productive or whatever. I'm not in touch with whatever creates the music, so I'm.
It's not quite like brushing your teeth, but it's very regular. Yeah, that's good.
I guess they come fairly frequently, and I can record them.
Sure.
So that's all I do. I just sit down and record them. I don't really do anything else afterwards.
I know, and that's what makes it so amazing. I mean, you start out with this thing, and of course they start one place and they go somewhere else. But holy smokes, I mean, it's like you know where the notes have to be, and that's always the big struggle. It just kind of flows, and that's really very impressive. So. But it sounds like it's the kind of thing you would have to do like almost every day in order to stay reasonably good at it. But it's been regular on a weekly basis, but maybe not every day. It sounds like
it's not every day. It's I guess 20 days out of
20 out of 3. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, you can have a day off every now and then. Well, that's great. Jim and I are both wage slaves at a soul-killing day job, so we know what that's like. It's good to have music as an outlet, and
but I'm going to have to do that maybe too, because I'm mostly doing temporary assignments from home.
Oh, yeah.
They don't last long enough. Medical is a struggle.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and I'm trying to get students, and I have one great one. He does exactly what I do, and he's 15.
Oh boy.
What I mean by that is he has the same approach to improv. And so I'm supposed to be teaching him, but what I do is I just go have fun. I say, hey, here's an idea.
Let's hear you do this, and then you sit back and he does it,
yeah, he does really well. So I'm looking for more of those kind of kids. But they're the other ones who are C, D, E, F, G.
Well, music is underrepresented in the schools here. Maybe New Jersey is a little better. I know it was when I was growing up, maybe not so much now, but that kind of opportunity for kids is very important. So to be able to offer that, is an important thing.
I mean, the schools are struggling. We have a rough governor. He likes to cut back. He has a problem with schools, so we're like New Jersey. The teachers aren't crazy about him. So, but try for private schools and camps, and I did a camp last year and this year.
Ben, I think there's somebody that you and I both know, I believe. Have you, Adam Bernstein?
Yeah, I met him through music for people.
That's what I thought you were. A while ago when you were speaking of that, I was thinking of that. He taught for a while music at the school where my kids go in Brooklyn, and then I remember I thought his name came up in either via Facebook or some conversation, but I wondered if he was part of the circle that you mentioned.
Well, he was in it for a while. I don't know if he stuck with it.
Well, he's
Uh,
running his own. He left Berkeley Carroll, and he's been. And I've not been in touch with him. I knew him through the school, and we talked from time to time. And but I know he's got like a workshop program on his own that he's trying to market. That I think is called Jazz Progress, or oh,
with jazz meditation.
something like maybe that is it. But he's akin to you in thought. There, he's very dedicated to the style of
Yeah,
music, and I think a particular period in that. And he really did a good job at the school. I'll say that.
he's a good player. Eh?
Yeah, he is. He is, Paul, for your information, he taught my kids go to a school in Park Slope called Berkeley Carroll, and he ran the jazz band and some teaching around that, and he was very big on swing.
Sure,
To
yeah.
me, yeah, yeah. I think your whole thing about just sitting down and playing and following the trail. I do that as well. Although I'm kind of in a period of returning to some composition, but uh, I still do a healthy amount of the way you described, and it's just your pieces really grow like that. Everything that we hear each week, it's like stories really that you don't necessarily know how they're going to come out.
Yeah.
That's because Ben has 20 fingers.
Yeah.
You probably didn't know that. He can cover 2 octaves on each one,
In a
each
single
hand.
thread.
So that, yeah,
It does
yeah,
become that way. You start out, often you'll start out in a very subtle, which is, the whole part of building contrast, but you'll start out sort of almost delicate, and by the end of it, you'll be sort of, you know, really into the soundboard of the piano. You'll be really generating both volume and just a sense of, not in everything, but I hear often will hear that particularly in your acoustic pieces where I use the almost parallel with the guitar, is that you'll be playing so intense that you kind of get a sense that you're really connected with the wood.
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, there are very few people who post things on Improv Friday that are as, such pure improvisation as Ben's stuff. I mean, he just sits down, he turns on the recorder, and then, 5 minutes or 10 minutes later, he's played every note. He hasn't. I guess you don't write that stuff down first. I mean, that would be just coming right from the brain to the fingers without your mind getting in the way. That's a really good skill, and it's.
That's when things are working well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, of course, yeah.
There are times where it's just I'll just stop in the middle and go, no, this isn't working. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, all the stuff you've posted, I don't know, maybe you've had to, drop a few, but I mean, all the stuff is very smooth. It's, it seems like, you're moving with great confidence. I think it's an amazing thing to witness, and those skills, I don't know that anyone knows how to teach them, but they certainly aren't getting, as much attention as they might have in the past. And it's a real shame because, even Bach could do what you do. He would sit down and he could do
uh,
a 3 or 4 stage fugue, just from a melody. And I think that's where the music really comes from. It has to come from your heart, and then if you can get it into your fingers without thinking too hard about it, that's a big skill. All that other stuff that we do, putting it on paper and rehearsing and figuring it out, that's kind of gets in the way of the music sometimes.
it can, yeah. But I guess once you put it on paper and you know what it is, you can refine it. And
Right. Yeah. Do you do any of that? Do you do any notation of some of your stuff? Or
used to, I used to.
Yeah. So you
Yeah,
have like a
used,
library of written pieces. Yeah.
they're a while ago.
Yeah.
Don't notate much anymore.
Right.
I don't. I know how to, but I
Right.
would have
Well,
to.
Yeah, who's going to buy it? I mean, I mean, sheet music is not something that's a hot selling item as much. And so,
I think Steve Layton said he's not doing scored music anymore.
yeah, yeah.
I was just going to say, I mean, there are good things that come. I went through a period of, I, like you, was educated in to do that, and then I got away from it for many, many years. And one of my first teachers in New York used to greet me at the end when I would tell him I had a new piece to go over, because we were talking about composition, and he'd say, "Have you written it down?" And so much of what I was doing at that time was structure in my head and then playing off of it. And then in recent years, I got a publishing opportunity, and so I had to write some things down. And it's a certain amount, it is work. I mean, softwares make it easier, but regardless whether you're writing or clicking, it's time consuming. The good part is that, and Steve Mosher made a comment about this, I think, a sidebar of this, Paul, when he was talking about, and Ben, I don't know if you heard it in the interview, but he was talking about the idea of, regardless of the format of the genre of the music, it's giving it sort of a record. It's giving it a library, because he talked about, we were talking about the drums, and it's like there's no like set of, I mean, yeah, there are instructions and things.
There's no canon for it,
right? And I think I've become of the opinion that I think a certain amount of that is probably important for the preservation. I mean, we do it with recordings, and
Right.
When you do write it down, you get a chance to refine it a bit.
Yeah, well, one of the things the percussionists that we've interviewed have pointed out, they say, you go to write piano music, there is 500 years of piano music out there, and are they going to do Ben Smith or are they going to do Beethoven? And the choice sometimes isn't going to be that hard. So, whereas there isn't a canon for percussion, there isn't 500 years of drum music, and so a lot of new music is percussive because they are trying to build something for which there is no tradition. And so one of the things Ben is up against as a teacher and as someone who creates new piano music is that you've got, all of that stuff that's gone before, a lot of it pretty good music, and, you're always going to be compared with that. It's a tough thing. Maybe Ben disagrees.
It's not that tough.
Yeah.
Well, what else do you do in terms of, you'll use the acoustic a lot, but you're using are you using a synth or some sort of digital piano?
I have a digital piano. It's a kind of basic one. It's a Yamaha
Yeah.
PS70. It's a few years old. I think they replaced it now. More advanced one. And I hook it through GarageBand and can use plenty of acoustic patches and electric piano patches and other things.
Yeah.
I guess I tend toward the piano and the patches because I can control the dynamics more than the electronic sounds. And the dynamics are an important part of what I do. So that's why you'll probably hear more piano stuff. But sometimes I like to do the other sounds and get more sustain and more drama or whatever, more texture, different texture from it. There are bell sounds that I use too.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. No, you do a little of each every week, so one or two of each piece. I'm a big fan of the straight piano.
Okay.
Now, partly because it's familiar, but the other things are fine. The electric stuff, it's good to be able to do that. It's good to have a variety. And it's all done with fingers, though, I guess, right? You're pushing, but you're playing a keyboard of some kind, even if it's the electronic one.
It's a digital piano. It's 88 keys, and it's
Wow.
It's a piano. Yeah, it's just
right. Yeah, it just doesn't have strings and hammers and stuff. Yeah.
Right.
But you're always playing live. You're not like stepping anything in, correct? I mean, you're playing live to chip, as it were.
Yeah, no, I don't do any loops or anything like that.
Yeah.
Or tracks. Too lazy to do that.
You just go.
Yeah.
pick a sound and
See where it takes you. Yeah, sure.
You,
play.
you mentioned one of your influences is a favorite of mine, and you were here when he was alive, and I was not. I'm from the South, so I never had that opportunity. But did you ever get a chance to see Bill Evans?
Once,
Yeah.
once,
Was he at the Vanguard? Or
or
did you ever
Blue
go?
Note or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember the particular venue when I most of the time. But I think it was the Blue Note. He played mostly standards. He played Waltz for Debbie.
Yeah. Wow.
Um, they played great. The trio setting, familiar trio setting.
Right. Yeah.
It's wonderful. He had to sit down,
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
wasn't exactly crowd friendly, but he was fine.
That's what I've heard. He was really amazing to me, and I just anyhow used to listen and still occasionally do. And I heard Steve did a piece the other day. In fact, I mashed myself with it. I was really moved by it, and but it really spoke of Evans to me a lot.
Well, I really did like that kind of music. I had collected all these records, the big 33 and a third albums, and I, had all this. And then one day, I decided I would start following classical music, and now I got a huge CD collection of classical music. And I looked at those old vinyl things, and I said, you know, it's never coming back. We're not going to have another Coltrane. It's just not going to happen. So I took all the stuff down to the local radio station, left it on their doorstep with a note that says, if you can use it, fine. If you
Wow.
can't, throw it away because I can't bear to do it. And I just tried to, to just turn my back on that. It was just too painful. But
Wow.
now with YouTube, you know, all
Yeah.
that stuff is there. And
Yeah.
I listened to Coltrane and the tears are coming down my eyes, what I'm saying? Why did I ever leave this stuff? But, it was just such a sad thing when it got where it went and then didn't, nobody picked up. I mean, the Marsalis brothers, I suppose, but, it's become an academic thing up at Lincoln Center, and it's kind of lost what Ben and I remember, as being a real viable kind of club scene. And boy, it just seems like that. My heart was broken, and I don't know quite how to get over it. Still, I don't think. Where, Ben, do you see yourself going? I mean, I don't know how anyone can do any better at improv, or certainly any faster than you do. I mean, what do you think the future is going to be for you? Are you going to kind of stay where you are? Have you got some ideas as to where you want to go with something completely different, or any plans?
I try to approach the piano a little differently, but I'm not sure in terms of the improvs. I think I'll just continue to pretty much do what I'm doing. Because if I do something that's just outside of what I'm doing, it's just not going to be right for me. That's why I appreciate hearing other approaches and to music. What I'm doing is spinning it out and sometimes mostly having a melody, a theme, and developing that kind of stuff.
Right.
Maybe I'll do 2 tracks one day or something like that. I think I did that once or twice.
Right.
Or I'll try to find a few sounds with a new.
Sure.
Maybe synth sometimes, but doing the piano it's good for me to do the piano stuff.
Yeah, sure. Well, you're very comfortable there, no question. Sure. At Improv Friday, of course, you hear almost all kinds of things. Remember Jukka Pekka from Finland. I mean, he was putting up screeches and all kinds of stuff. And
Sega Genesis.
yeah, right. He was doing game chip music, and then there's guys like JC, and they go out and they get these sound field recordings, and they put all that together. It's it's quite a variety. It's really opened my mind a little bit. I hear things now that I would have thought non-musical, and I kind of am starting to hear them in a different way. And sometimes those experiences are expanding. You get a little more out of things by that. And but it's good to hear a piano player who is comfortable at the keyboard. I mean, that's hard to beat.
The funny thing is that when I'm at music for people, I don't play the piano much. I do a lot of vocal improvs.
You do? Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do more of those.
Huh.
And I play the melodica,
Okay.
but I do a lot of vocal improvs at the at music for people.
Is that
Yeah.
more like vocalese, or is it more like scat and just sounds?
Whatever. Sometimes vocal. I mean, the vocalese would be having words to a solo kind of thing. So it wouldn't be that, but it would be sometimes scattish, but sometimes not. It's just whatever comes out.
Yeah. You've also mentioned going to. Correct me if I'm wrong, but have you come over to the drum circle here a few times?
Drum circles, I sometimes go to them. There's one in Brooklyn.
Right, and it's in the park. Right.
Yeah, Ryan Carter's. I go to that.
Yeah. Bicycled by it a bunch, and I've got several hand drums, and I just always seems like I have too many agendas, but it's kind of been on my list to go over. But I like a lot of hand percussion, and weave a lot of percussion into my world in a way. But have you, in terms of the body of work have you done, do you ever kind of catalog it from time to time and either release like a select, like a CD's worth of material, or is that on the radar?
Yeah, I hope. I know Steve asked me to do a
like a Bandcamp thing
on his
right.
and
It's
he
still
did one.
yeah. It's on his website. Sure.
Yeah, that's about it. I have to get better recording skills because just the mastering and remastering, that sort of thing. But it's all in GarageBand. It's all sort of in order, and I guess I could pick out some. And that's what David Darling, he's the head of music for people. He's been after me to just make CDs and just send them out.
Well, you've got 200 or 300 to choose from. I will say that what you put on Improv Friday each week sounds very good if it's just a recorder turned on at the top of the piano or something. I mean, a lot of times when you try and do that, you get all this room noise and echoes and stuff.
Well, this is going through a MIDI, so it's not in the room.
Oh, okay. Well, that would explain it, wouldn't it?
Yeah. The vocal stuff you'll get the room noise and things.
Sure, yeah. But I mean, what you're recording is pretty clean. I don't think there'd be much mastering to have to do to make it listenable. I mean, it's all pretty good the way you post it. Sometimes a little soft, but I mean,
soft. Well, Steve is, when he remasters it, you can tell the difference.
Yeah, well, he's a real pro. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Where does Music for People meet? What's that about?
Music for People is the idea that it's non-elitist, that anyone, any level can just play together.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a good idea. It's not totally like that, but that's the idea of it. And there are 4 workshops a year, and one is in Stony Point.
Okay.
Right.
The other one is in Immaculata, Pennsylvania.
Where's that?
It's south.
Sounds like Pennsylvania
I
Dutch
guess it's near
country.
Paoli, and then there's a week-long thing up in upstate. I got the name of it. Fredonia.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
How'd you get involved with it, or?
How did what happened?
Well, I was wondering how you got involved with the Music for People.
Oh, I wanted to find improvisation of all types, and I looked online about 5-6 years ago, and I found Pauline Oliveira's Deep Listening and also Music for People. And there was a program. Hers was a 6-year program, and Music for People was 4-year. So I chose a 4-year program.
Wow.
And it's a leadership program where they sort of train you how to facilitate what they do. And so the way they present music and teach it is parallel to the way I do it. So it worked out great. I felt really home doing it. It feels great.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Is it sort of something that you'll? I guess it's a certain a certain approach that you can take in your own teaching then, or maybe you can take it and use it in that way.
I definitely use some of that approach in my teaching, sure. The idea is to to get out of the way, just let the student play. Well, I guess the idea is to have a certain musical discipline.
Yeah.
You know, it's a whole tone scale or something like that. Instead of being so academic about it,
Right.
just improvise, use it, play with it, see what you can do with it.
Sure. Yeah.
And then if they have trouble, I'll say, well, try a rhythm, try this melody or something, or based on this melody. But I mostly model it, and the student I have now, if I model well enough, he'll just jump in and start playing.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah. Wow.
So you work off my energy.
Wow. Well, where do you see music going? I mean, you've been around long enough to see the club scene kind of evaporate, and of course the chances for gigging musicians are shrinking and are down to a handful. And you're teaching, and of course students are not getting much reinforcement in the schools for this. So it all looks pretty grim. Do you see any bright spots?
Oh, sure.
Well, tell us.
The online communities where you can have people anywhere around the world jam together. So that's one thing.
Have you tried the nin jamming? Jim has done that, where people from different continents even are playing together.
No, I haven't done it, but that's one area where there's positives. The more independent, you can produce your own music and send it out via the net instead of the big record companies, which will compromise it or try to mold it into something.
Right. Yeah.
That's where it's positive, I think.
Yeah, there aren't any gatekeepers anymore. People saying, you got to sound like this in order to get heard.
Well, in the commercial world there is, I guess. They want a product. They don't really care about the music much, but they want a product. If you have a certain look or sound or whatever that's popular now, that they can really sell.
They can package it and promote it and put you on a tour and spend millions of dollars and get people to buy stuff. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, but there's certain rap things I do like, because I like the energy and the anger and that sort of stuff.
Well,
Decent way.
Sure.
And there's there's certain alternative rock and stuff like that I find fine.
Yeah.
Then there's a lot of stuff that's just it's very packaged and slick, and you can tell the production. So it's not. Well, it has its purpose, but it's not seek out.
The thing I miss most about at least popular music is that it's no longer dangerous. I remember when I was growing up, we were listening to Dylan and Joni Mitchell, and there was there was a Vietnam War, and it was a grim time, and there was a lot of importance to that music and the message that was in it, and now it's all bubblegum. It just seems you just wonder what people are thinking when they're listening to it, or if they're thinking at all, maybe.
Yeah, even the rap, where it used to be the urban scene and the dangers and all the stuff going on, and police brutality, even that sort of lost its edge, because the rappers have become sort of mainstream now. So
they're the ones with all the money.
They have a ton of money.
Yeah.
So,
That's true.
I do think that's true. My son's really kind of into that, and he's gone back, I know, and listened to some of the earlier things, and a lot of that sort of rawness and that expressed a wide range of sentiment, is not necessarily there anymore.
Right.
And I know what you mean about all that. And that was, in one way, I think that's what we're talking about. We're talking about, music being able to hit on all emotions, to give a contrast, to give a picture, and
or to even just have passion.
Yeah, that's the end result, or should be.
Yeah, there's no doubt rap music has passion and rhythm and as Ben says, some anger, but that's an expression. That's the point. But most everyone else's popular music just seems like it comes out of the same machine, and it's pretty discouraging sometimes that that's where all the money is and the attention is going.
Not really about the music. It's about just who can we promote?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What's the product look like, and how do we package it, and what kind of wrapper do we put on it, and everything? Yeah. Well, I agree. I think the online stuff is for new music anyway, probably the best thing.
Yeah.
When the printing press was invented, there was all the gatekeepers lost their power, and I think the same thing is happening now online. If anybody can put something out there, of course everyone will, but at the same time there isn't anybody that says you can't, and so that's probably overall in the balance a big advantage. And it's good to be able to do that, and to find a community of people whose music you can appreciate and can work with, and that probably wouldn't happen for the kind of music that I like to listen to in my zip code. We just don't have five people who understand it, or three, and sometimes I think I'm the only one. And so to be able to meet and listen to other people's music is a real advantage, and it wouldn't be possible without the internet.
Ben, how'd you find Improv Friday?
On Twitter. I think Carla Patterson said, I'm trying to post something on Improv Friday, and I said, okay, what's Improv Friday?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, JC,
by accident.
Yeah, JC says he started that on Twitter. And he swears that has gotten him, or the Improv Friday site, the most number of participants. He thinks that's, and he still sends out a Twitter every week, and he's convinced that without that, there wouldn't be people joining. So Ben's here to tell us that that's the way it was. I know Ben was here, when I first started posting. So you must be one of the original members.
I don't know. It was Net New Music, but I
remember those days. Yeah, Net New Music.
Yeah,
sure.
That turned into a disaster. But
boy, didn't it? Did you ever meet Jeff? I mean, he was living in New York there for a while. Jeff Harrington. Yeah. Well, best to stay clear, maybe.
I like his music, but
unfortunately,
things didn't go well there.
A lot of other folks who remember those days at Net New Music kind of miss the edge. I mean, we'd put stuff up there and there'd be arguments and flame wars, and it was all kind of intriguing. You went there just to see what was going to happen.
Right.
And there was an uncertainty and a danger to it that was kind of attractive, I thought. And we've been trying to recover that somehow, but it all comes out looking like Facebook too much, I think. And so we don't have that potential for catastrophe that we used to have there that was so much fun.
I was never part of that. I came along afterwards, and I can see where the whole tone of what we have now, albeit tremendously encouraging, and I know it's a surviving community of that previous world, so it's probably with good reason how Improv Friday is kind of very I think of it as curated in a way, but it's very uncurated, because anybody, we encourage the whole openness, which I love.
Well, it is self-curating in the sense that you got to be a guy like Ben who can sit down every week and put something together that's postable. And a lot of musicians don't work on that kind of time frame. It takes them a month to get something worked out if it's original, and then maybe a few weeks to polish it and so on. I mean, there's just a whole different scale to the time that it takes them to create something. The people who post every week on Improv Friday are creating something every week for Improv Friday, and that kind of self-limits the the folks who are likely to participate. I think we've been extraordinary how many people like Ben have been with it, from the early days, and have managed to do something just about every week. Some folks have done it, for a number of months or years, but they've had to take a break. It's I think it's a very demanding sort of regimen, and unless you're committed to that, you're going to come and go. And so that kind of limits the community to those who are really committed, I think, and that's That's why it has to be on the internet. There may not be 50 people in the world who can do that. So it's it's a good thing that it's there, but it's going to be I think always fairly small.
That's okay. It's small.
Sure.
Otherwise, I don't know if we'd have time to listen to it.
Well,
Right.
that's a good point. It is, because
there's a lot of music to listen to.
it is, and I would totally echo that, because I have to take 2 or 3 hits. I will generally check in as soon as I can on Thursday, and if I'm lucky, I'll be able to record something before midnight on Thursday. Otherwise, I kind of am able to get with it generally Friday evening after work. But it's and then I'm generally in post listening, but it's kind of nice in that way, because then I can listen through the week.
Well, it is good to listen. I can't listen to all of it at once, or even all of it every week. I try and listen to pieces and parts. But if everybody does that, then everybody's going to get heard by somebody.
Yeah.
And that really is something that a lot of new musicians can't take for granted. I mean, they'll maybe work 6 or 8 weeks or months on a piece, and they'll try and organize a performance, and 10 people show up who don't understand it, and that's it.
Yeah.
We have the advantage of at least someone who's intelligent of those who participate may listen to what you're doing, and you may get a little feedback or not, but you're putting it out there in front of people who, if they do happen to listen, are going to understand what you're trying to do. And that I think that's vastly underrated. And I think it's one of the reasons so many of us try and participate on a regular basis, because we want to keep that going.
Right, and the ones on Facebook are doing the same thing. With Steve Mosier's. There's a whole bunch of them now.
Oh, he's got 5 or 6. He's got lots of groups. But you're right. There are other groups on Facebook that where you can post your pieces and get some feedback, and that's a great format too. And I try and cross post onto those things because again, the chances, I think there's a little more chance of exposure there for all those things. I mean, you look at the members that Steve has on some of his groups and the people at Improv Friday. There's maybe 200 to 300. And, they aren't all putting something up every week, but, it's still a pretty small universe of people who even are members or know about it or post something now and then. So it's important, to try and keep a critical mass there so that there's enough people to post and enough people to listen. And, we can have a sort of a feedback loop so that, we're not just writing stuff and hoping somebody hears it someday. That is a very thankless task.
Sure is, yeah.
Yeah. Are there other places that you post that are similar? I know we've talked about the ones on Facebook, but I'm not sure I understand if there's another place like.
No. That's Improv Friday and Facebook.
Yeah. Okay.
There used to be other Ning one. There was Free Improv, but that's done.
Yeah.
But that was Ning also.
Yeah. Well, then we're it, and we'll have to try and keep the fires going to make sure that there's a place for music to be heard, and the people creating it will have a place where someone will listen. That's the whole essence.
Women are in Improv Friday. 4?
How many which?
Women.
Oh, women. Oh, gosh. That is our big failing, isn't it?
It is. And we occasionally attract, and we have recently. And that's something I've noted, that it we're largely male-dominated, but we've had, I can think of 2 steady, and there was a friend of Steve's who was there for a while, but the Jude and the woman from Vermont, Lydia.
And then there was Alexandra, I think her name was.
That's
from
Steve's buddy.
Steve's friend, yeah. And she was great. She did this vocal stuff. It was really cool. But then she, has a family and, a whole life. So,
I suspect, and I may go on a big offensive approach here, so I may have to cut this, but I suspect it is somewhat challenging given the dynamics of that it's largely, seems like a male community. And maybe we need to make a bigger point in the opening page, maybe that
Yeah.
that, we're co-ed.
Well, we are all over these people when they post. Oh, we're so glad you're
Yeah, I
here.
know.
Thanks for coming. Please come back. Great stuff. We try and do everything we can to be friendly. Maybe we're like those drunks in bars. Who go up to women. Or something. Maybe we're just coming on too strong. But it's, I don't think it's for lack of wanting female participation. That's for sure.
We need to
No,
add
just
to
not that way, right? There are not that many women that joined and contributed.
Well, I wish there was. Yeah.
I do think that both of those ladies are doing some interesting stuff for sure. I think that Jude has brought a lot of particularly vocal, sort of almost playful things. And Lydia's come and gone, but she seemed more, like she was sticking around more last time, and she seems to have more of the whole classical experience.
That is a tremendous lack. I think the tone might come up a little if we had some women to keep us honest. That's not so strong points. Yeah, maybe Ben has a girlfriend he can invite who can play for us.
Well, she wouldn't go to. But there are a lot of women on in Music for People. I'll try to get them to post.
Well, if they have ideas that they can make music or create music, and they want a place to throw it out and see what happens,
Yeah, I'll try to get some of them because
they might just take to it. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we don't scare them off, I don't know.
I'll try not to do.
Yeah.
Well, Ben, how do people find you if somebody wants to study with you? How's the best way to track you down?
Facebook.
Okay, that's what I wondered. Do you now is that your main web presence then?
Right now, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, because we want to try to assist you, and it is an opportunity to maybe we'll attract a student or two for you.
That'll be great.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, is it totally teaching in your home, or do you go, are you a traveling teacher to a degree?
Mostly, yeah. Traveling. Trying not to go too far in the car. But,
yeah.
Right, yeah. Well, that's, you have to, at least it used to be, you could go to music stores or piano stores and, put up a card or something and attract a few students that way. And, it's harder and harder to know where to, advertise. But I know our choir director at church teaches voice lessons, and he's done pretty well with that. He's got a number of students, and, they have followed him, and, he's worked with them for a few years, and, he does make, something like a living that way. All right. Well, thanks so much. I really enjoyed talking and meeting with you, and
it was great to speak with you guys.
Thank you for joining us today for Words on New Music. Paul Muller and myself, Jim Goodin, have been talking to composer, improvising pianist, musician, and educator Ben Smith. You can find out more about Ben by searching Benjamin Smith on Facebook and in the members section of improvradi.com. Improvradi is an online new music social community offering creative and engaging music by artists around the world. Words on New Music is produced under Creative Commons by Paul Muller and Jim Goodin. Follow this video podcast by subscribing to the channel on YouTube at youtube.com/Words on New Music, following our tweets on Twitter at Words on New Music, and liking us on Facebook at Words on New Music. This is show date July 2012.